Here we are. All right, let's begin. Charlie, if you'd like to.
Please do, Charlie.
Thank you. Dear Creator of all that is, we are here in awe of an increasing awareness of the corruption, awareness of the depth and breadth of violations against humanity in your sacred creation. A greater, more conscious awareness also comes in the form of a greater self-awareness, an awareness of who we are, not just a physical body, not dictated by mind and outer facts and figures, not directed by emotion and instinct, not any of one of these things, but a wholeness and a depth of awareness that we are far greater than we consider most of the time. We now stop to embrace the importance of who we really are and why we are even here, because all of this awareness comes together to eventually assemble us into the greatness, not the ego place greatness, but the humility and gratitude greatness, that we are co-creators, that we have power and magnificent as a humankind, flesh and blood being. This is alignment and a balanced awareness of who we are. And then we step out to align with others, and we form a consciousness that forms in unity to create a reflection of God-given divinity. When we are aligned within, we are aligned with our Creator. When we know who we are and we can accomplish our purpose of spirit, of celebration, creation, and joy, it is that alignment, that unity, that we accomplish the life on this earth that we were created for. And so it is.
Amen. Thank you.
Yep. And so it is.
So let me just start off with a brief introduction for the folks who will be watching this shortly. Of course, this is Mark Emery with the National Action Task Force, and I wear other hats as well, as most of you know. And I'm here with Ron Vrooman and Charlie White from the, Oregon Jural Assembly? Is that what you go?
Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly.
Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Okay, very good. So you folks have actually put together a functioning body, brought together some brave souls who are committed to freedom and are actually functioning as a jural body. And so what we'd like to focus on here today a little bit is, without getting into all the organizational details yet, we'll do that at another time. Just tell us what you have accomplished so far in terms of creating these bodies, bringing them together. What have they done? I understand that the grand jury has deliberated over a few matters. You can tell us about that, and we'll just kind of take it from there. So maybe if you would, Ron and Charlie, just give us a little idea as to what your function is in the Jural Society, and kind of what it is you're doing personally, and then Ron, I'll let you take it from there, and Charlie can fill in. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So Ron, what are you doing within the Jural Assembly? Do you have a particular function, or are you a man of many hats?
Yeah, I've got a particular function. I'm the contact point. And I send out most of the emails, and I make most of the contact with whoever it is we're going against and whatever we're doing, and for a place for them to come back at us. So it just kind of, I'm the outward connection, so to speak. Somebody's got to be the old man carrying the spear out front, and I selected myself, and
all right,
let me.
So communications director then.
No, that's William.
Statewide Communications Director. All right.
No,
Uh,
that's William.
Oh, okay.
William's our communications director,
Oh, okay. I was confused for a minute.
and Charlie's the boss.
Yeah, you mentioned Charlie's the boss. So, Charlie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your
I
activity.
think he means that I'm bossy, but anyway, I am simply one of the members of the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly who really wants to bring our state back to a Republican form of constitutional government, or I should say a constitutional republic, because it's not a party that we're trying for, that we're working for. We want to get back to common law. We want to recognize the lies and the deceit of the commercial code, our hierarchy, and we're holding that function or faction accountable for all of the things that we find to be egregious and a violation of our rights.
Okay, so let's start with the definition of a jural assembly. How would people digest that in their minds? What actually is a jural assembly?
Well, we're not assembling for other purposes. We're assembling to bring about a major change, and we have to do with the de jure government, the de jure law form of the people that are doing the work, and the ones that are the sovereigns on the land. And then we started doing what we needed to do to return the country of Oregon into a nation again. So we found out about ex parte Milligan, and we found out that all of the states were subdivisions of the United States, and all of the counties were subdivisions of the state. And they had left the people out of the equation completely. They couldn't even try a man or a woman. They can only try a fiction, an all cap fiction. So we told them, and we wanted to tell them, and we petitioned them, and they refused our petition. They didn't honor their oath. And that was Kate Brown, Suzanne Bonamici, Jeff Wyden, and Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden. Yeah. Okay. So we told them, and they acquiesced, and they admitted their guilt, that they are oath breakers without honor and can't hold a position of trust. That makes them unworthy to be in their office. So we sent that information to 38 prosecutors on Oregon for the de facto side. And we did that as a presentment. And then we moved over to the de jure side, and we set up our Article 3, Amendment 7, Common Law Court of Record, and assumed original jurisdiction. And we had a trial. Well, we had an arraignment first, and nobody showed at their arraignment. So then we had a trial. We had the trial outside in front of the State House building in downtown Salem. And we called a jury, and the jury arrived. And we read the charges, and they were found guilty. Charlie read a hell of a nice prayer.
Go ahead, Mark.
I assume some evidence was presented and nobody was there to defend against the charges. And then there was a verdict, right?
Correct, but it starts way back in the beginning when they're notified or noticed, and they acquiesce. They do not defend themselves nor even respond.
Right.
So we keep going. So by the time of the arraignment, their names or their representatives are called. And when no one shows, then we proceed. And so that was when we then called a trial.
Uh-huh.
In the case of the upcoming event on May 8th, we will have an arraignment and a trial on the same day, assuming none of the 90 legislators who have already acquiesced do not appear, nor their representatives. We will then hold a trial at that time.
Yeah. Well, in law, failure to object is fatal. And I find it interesting. It's kind of a double-bladed sword for them that if they choose to ignore proceedings on the front end, they have absolutely no business of interfering at any point in the future on the back end. So
This is correct.
they would seem to
I was going to.
a double quandary there.
Yeah, I was going to say that not only did they acquiesce, but we literally did call or email many or most of them, if not all of them, at various times to let them know what we were doing. And also when we noticed Peter Courtney, who's the Speaker of the Senate, and Tina Kotek, who's the Speaker of the House, and we told them that they had 5 days to inform their people, their legislators. No one did any kind of response. They all acquiesced. So they had plenty of opportunity to speak up, object, substantiate anything from their side. So we're in good stead.
What's interesting is that typically, just as a matter of courtesy, if you send your congressman or somebody a letter, they'll respond to say, "Thank you for your letter. We'll take it under consideration. We appreciate you participating in the process." Something like that. But what I find interesting is they had not even given the courtesy of a response which would acknowledge that they received it, which would put them in a culpable position, even though they already are. But everything serves a purpose here, it seems.
Would seem to be so.
Yeah, yeah. So here we have a Jural Assembly of what are the requirements for the participants in the Jural Assembly? Are there any?
Well,
Legal status or age or
yeah, legal status for sure. We do legal status really easily and simply with one piece of paper and 3 people. And it's my first one that I did was 14 pages long, and I had it copyrighted to establish who I was. And we now do it on one piece of paper, and it's not even covered with ink. And when a free man or woman testifies in the form of an affidavit of truth that they are not a U.S. citizen and that they are an Oregonian on the land and soil of Oregon, and then they find 2 people to witness that, and everybody signs in red, thumbprint in red, and print in blue, you have the strongest document you can have in the de facto and the strongest document you can have in de jure. And I'm sure that the martial law people, the JAG people, will recognize it as strong also. So one piece of paper and your jurisdiction is settled.
okay. Go ahead, Charlie.
I might also add, that in signing that, the person who signs it recognizes that they're not a citizen of the United States, because a citizen is as if the United States owns us, and we are not owned by anyone. We are declaring that we're sovereign, that we're free from any kind of ownership or bondage.
Okay. Okay, well, that sounds like a simple process, a simple declaration, huh, Ron? I don't know if you're aware, but I lost my signal for a while when you were just starting, Ron. I had to
Yeah.
move my location.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we saw that you dropped off and you freeze up a little bit.
yeah, I had a bad connection, so I changed my location. Hopefully, it's better now. But my point is, review for us again what the intention was with these people who had the opportunity to appear but didn't appear. These were state legislators primarily, and what were the charges?
Well, the first time we did it was May 31st, 2019. And they all acquiesced to misprision of felony, the 30 senators. Pardon me, I take it back. The first time was against 36 sheriffs. All 36 sheriffs sell concealed carry permits. When you sell a concealed carry permit, you infringed upon my Second Amendment well-regulated militia and personal rights to carry. You don't have the authority to do that. You broke your oath. So we have 36 sheriffs on Oregon that all broke their oath and they admitted to it. So that was our first move. And then we did the Senate and they acquiesced also.
To what?
Misprision of felony, they know that Article 7 amended in the Oregon Constitution was placed in the Constitution unlawfully by a guy named Frank Benson, who was Secretary of State and governor at the same time, which is a constitutional impossibility, but he pulled it off. And they put it into the Constitution without one vote being counted in any county. And a guy named Milt Mitchek, back in the late 80s or 90s, drove around to every single county and spoke to the elections clerk to find out what the vote count was on Article 7 amended in November 8th, 1910, and there were 0 votes counted. That's what he found out.
And what was Article 7 in the Constitution?
The way you run the judiciary of Oregon.
Oh, no small matter.
No, they took judiciary and flipped it into a corporation.
Uh-huh. So it went from
And the legislature agreed to it, and the governor's the one that did it. They're all crooked, every single bit of them, from 1910 until now. That's staggering to find out that all of this time they have been operating in color of law and showing a smile to the Constitution and just raping and pillaging. And you find that out, and then people won't even believe it.
And so
And you can take it.
you presented them
Sorry.
with the facts, and again, nobody was willing to engage. Is that right?
Yes, they won't prosecute on it. I took it to the Department of Justice downtown Portland. His name is Seth Urim, Deputy Attorney for the United States on Oregon, and he refused to prosecute it or to do anything about it. I took it to the FBI. They refused also. I took it to the U.S. Marshals. They all refused federally to do anything about the corruption and color of law on Oregon. It's a fact. It's not opinion.
And this seems pervasive. I think most people are coming to the realization that this is the case across the board, from the lowest level to the highest level, from one agency to the next agency. And so when the people have no recourse, no redress of grievances, what is it in the Declaration of Independence that there comes a point in time when the people have a right to abolish the government when it no longer serves their ends. And so, what you're talking about is the best way to abolish it is simply to walk away and assume the authority that we, the people, have always had. You know, the people are the source of all law, they're the source of government. What's that, Ron?
That's my presentation card for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, but on the back of it, it's printed Article 1, Section 1 of the Oregon Constitution. All power is inherent in the people.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's just not words on paper. It's true. Once you comprehend, once you make the step to being, yeah, well, then it's done. And we have, I don't know, 70 or 100 people that have signed up for our grand jury. But you have to understand that the square root of the base number does 50% of all that is processed, everything that happens. Whatever you're measuring, the square root of the base does 50% of it.
yeah,
So you gotta get the base bigger so that little square root portion gets bigger. When you got 10, it's 3's the square root. But when you got 100, it's 10 that's a square root. That's a hell of a lot different than if it's 3 out of 10. But
yeah,
the square root stays the same.
yeah. You're talking about people that will actually make a commitment versus those who just sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've found that myself.
When our secretary makes the call and says, I'm tearing up again, and says the grand jury's meeting now,
Uh-huh.
and the base of 70 gets the call, and a jury actually shows up.
Yeah.
29 people show up, and Charlie read the facts, Charlie read the charges, and we actually did the job, man.
Yeah. Praise God. Yeah.
One right after the other. We took down Kate Brown, 2 senators, and 1 representative. We took down the Postal Service. We took down the Veterans Administration for masks and the post office for masks. What else was it, Charlie? We did 2 for Richard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we're working on OHSU too, on OSHA, because of this whole COVID pandemic and how it's destroying people's businesses, and children aren't able to attend school and they're forced to wear masks and all of it, which is based on so much manipulation and downright lies that
No.
we really can't stand by and allow it to happen to us,
No.
because transhumanism is looming big and loud, and we deserve better. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to be destroyed.
Yeah.
tell them about the card, Charlie.
Yes, our court of record has a card that we offer to people when they've signed up that lets anyone know who they're willing to show it to that we are standing by them, not required to wear a mask, not required to be vaccinated, and that if they are violated, their rights are violated, they can report it to our court, and we will follow up with a notice, and we will find those people guilty of violating our rights, and we'll act accordingly.
And so what people have to get through to in their mind is that people have been brainwashed to think that authority rests in the corporate government, and that we need to just follow the rules, follow all the laws. And what people don't understand is laws only apply to certain parties in certain instances, which goes against the grain of the general understanding, which is all laws apply to everybody, which is false, absolutely false. Every body of law, if you look in the statutory codes, has a jurisdictional clause which will specifically identify who this law applies to. And typically, just speaking in generalities, it'll be United States citizens, adults, taxpayers by definition. All of these words have specific definitions. And so that's what's fascinating about studying the statutory code, is that when you start getting into definitions, you find out that what you thought they were talking about is nothing close to what they're actually talking about. Okay? And so once you start to understand the actual application of law, and how in many cases, even if you do claim to be a U.S. citizen, those laws don't apply to you. All right? So that's what people have to get through their noggin, and start understanding that the people are the original source of all law, below God, of course. And so what you're doing is reclaiming the God-given authority that you have, and really anybody can set their own court. I was with a group, here's an example, that was asking people across the country to look for historical law books, old law books, from the 1800s, early 1900s, because many things have been changed, twisted, written out, forgotten, obliterated from the old days. And I'll never forget, one particular case was brought to our attention, how one lady, I think it was in Laramie, Wyoming, went on a trip. This was in like the late 1800s. And she went on a trip. When she came back, there was a squatter in her house, and he wouldn't leave. He refused to leave. So what did she do? She went about to set her own court. She set a date. She got a jury together. She told the sheriff the time and place to come and provide security and to oversee the proceedings. And when the court was assembled, she managed her own court at her own location, which happened to be her home. You mentioned doing yours on the steps of the courthouse. It could be done at a Denny's, for all that matters. Okay, a court is not a place; it's not a building. You and I are the court, and when we assemble our court as the king, as the sovereign, which is referenced in what is it? Kip Yo versus Hopkins, if I have that Supreme Court citation memorized correctly. The Supreme Court recognizes that, is that we are the sovereign upon the land, and we are the source of all authority. And so what you are doing in assembling a jural society is assembling people who understand the authority that they have to affect their own law. Yes, Ron?
From what I understand, people assemble and they have jural assemblies, and persons form jural societies. And that's a pretty major distinction.
Oh, okay. Definitions again.
Yes.
Persons versus people.
Also, society tends to imply that it's explicit, or it only allows certain individuals. The assembly allows the people who have a shared common concern for the goal of being sovereign. It's really basic. We're not, we don't have a hierarchy. We just have people who are willing to step up to do whatever is needed to do to get the job done.
So Jural Assembly, not a Jural Society. Okay,
Absolutely.
very good.
And we're public, not secret.
Okay, absolutely. So, yeah, so this is what we need. We need to get this knowledge and education across to people and start reclaiming our God given authority to effect the law. We have a case in fact right now with the Patriot Princess case in Minnesota, where the state is coming down hard on this woman for managing her own business, managing her own life, and in counterclaims to the belligerent claims the state was making against her, she made counterclaims and she established her court, according to common law, put in a 31-page exhibit with the rules of that common law court that she was proceeding under, and a judgment has already been entered onto the record, a judgment nihil deceit, which means they say nothing in their own defense. And so the judgment was entered against these people. It was close to $20 million. Now they're trying to dance around that and make up all kinds of excuses. But see, what's happening and what needs to happen is that the record is being set. And there's no doubt in my mind that there will come a point in time when all accounts will be settled. And the record that we set now will be the noose that these people hang from at some point in time. And not that we want that, not that we're seeking that, but there needs to come a change, and it needs to come from the people. And regardless of what some people say, oh, that didn't work, you didn't get a nice certificate saying, oh, you win, we lose, here's $50 million. Some people will look for that and say, oh, that didn't work if you didn't get one of those. Well, everything works when you set the record, is my point. And that's what you're doing. You're setting the record. So where do you go from here at this point? You've set the record with these politicians who will not even acknowledge receiving your notices. Where do you go from here? At one time, Ron, you mentioned the JAG officer. Has there been any further thought or conversations with anybody in that position?
Yeah, I saw Charlie's hand up though, so I know she's got something to say.
Thank you. That was before your question, Mark, but I just was going to say that one important distinction between us as a court of record and working toward a constitutional republic versus being a democracy is that it doesn't take all or most to be on the winning side. The people decide, and we need, what is it, 5 to form an assembly and be effective, 1 person to be a court and to call a jury. We're talking about different kinds of numbers and understandings, and it's really important to define that this is not a democratic process, which, in a democracy per se. So I just wanted to clarify that because it's really important when we talk about, well, I'm a U.S. citizen, or, I believe in democracy. But those are really important word distinctions too. So go ahead, Ron, with answering Mark's question. I just wanted to put that in.
Let me just follow up on that real quick, Charlie.
Sure.
And what better example for us to recognize that in a democracy, it's mob rule. And look at the mob that's out there. Look at the mob that's out there. In a republic, the law protects the individual. And it doesn't take a mob to affect the law in a republic. And so that just goes to support your point that we need to be thinking republic, not democracy. In fact, the founding fathers thought democracy was the most abhorrent form of governance that one could even come up with. It's mob rule. And when you get a mob
Yes.
of zombies, look out. So, okay, Ron, go ahead. If you would, finally answer the question I asked about a half an hour ago.
On JAG,
Yeah.
the Judge Advocate General is the Uniform Code of Military Justice division that handles the law for the military.
Right.
They provide the court, they provide the prosecutor, they provide the defense, they do the whole thing. So they're one of the prosecutors on Oregon. Oregon is a little bit different. We don't have a port, a fort, a base, or a camp for the military on Oregon. There's no Navy base, no Army base, no camp, no forts, none of them. For some reason, they don't exist on Oregon. I've never got around to finding out why. But the National Guard is the only military on Oregon, and they run out of the Oregon National Guard office in Salem. And there's a JAG officer there named Nicholas. Help me, Charlie. His last name won't come.
I'm sorry. I'm
Major Nicholas, whatever. Anyhow, he's the JAG officer. When I called up the Judge Advocate General's office in Salem to explain who we were and what we were doing, and I told him about Ex parte Milligan, because when you enact Ex parte Milligan from a civilian court, you martial law on your state, and we did that in Oregon. We think that that's a major move. And when I said to the JAG officer Ex parte Milligan, he told me what it meant. They are very aware of Ex parte Milligan. The Lieber Code from Lincoln's Executive Order 100, we checked it out. It's still in effect. When they wrote the martial law update in 2015 for the Army, the Lieber Code was included. So as of 2015, the Lieber Code from Lincoln's era, 1860, is still in effect on the United States.
And
But
so
all it takes, go ahead.
the Lieber Code, what you're referring to, correct my phraseology if I'm not accurate, but that essentially is military law in times of war. Is that right?
Yeah, it's still in effect. They have a benevolent form of martial law going, and they call it constitutional republic, but it's not. You just saw the Supreme Court go communist 7-2 recently. It's gone. Their whole pretense of being a constitutional form of government is gone. It's a military form of martial law that's as benevolent as they want to make it. That's what's going on. That's what you have to fight. And so we eliminated martial law and FEMA on Oregon by their own rules. They have a doctrine called the Accardi Doctrine that says they have to follow their own rules. So if they're not, they're even breaking their own rules. But they do it all the time. You just have to take the next step against them. First step is civilian court of record and get rid of martial law. Second step is form a grand jury. Third step is find presentments from your grand jury and true bills from your grand jury and try these people in Article 3, Amendment 7 common law court of record. 1, 2, 3. You can do it in 21 days. Took us a year and a half. The paperwork can be done in 21 days. Bang.
Wow. Well, I think it's becoming easier and easier for most people to see that the whole system that exists right now is at war with the people.
Yes.
Anyone who's been in court sees that clearly. Anyone who's dealt with agencies, the IRS, EPA, I mean, you go right down the list. It's easy to see that. Look what the present so-called quasi de facto administration is doing. I won't even say they're in the White House because I don't think they are. I think they're operating on a stage somewhere in Disneyland. I don't know. But yeah, the point is that it's clear for people to see that the system that exists is at war with us. And we need to make a decision. Do you want to continue to be the cannon fodder and be led to the slaughterhouse? Or do we want to educate ourselves, inform ourselves of the law, of our authority, how to operate within the framework of a Republican form of government, and
Exactly.
start to take action and set the record?
Yeah, I think one thing that I can honestly say is that COVID, for all of its horrific demonstration, has given a lot of people pause and an opportunity to reflect and realize that we are not represented. We are not being governed in a way that we want to be governed. In fact, we want freedom from governance. And it's never become more clear because we can't even reach anybody. We can't even go to a library to look something up. We can't meet with anybody. We don't get phone calls returned. They're not even in the office. They're not even available. It's a ruse. And more people are realizing the violation and the lies that are being perpetrated by people who are supposedly to represent us.
Yeah, you don't need to know anything about the law because people just know instinctively that this is wrong. So,
Yes.
Ron, back to the JAG officers. So they understand ex parte Milligan. And
Yep.
describe that briefly. What are you referring to there?
Say that again. You broke up.
What are you referring to when you refer to ex parte Milligan?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
What does that?
A long time ago, 1865 or something like that, a bunch of guys in Indiana decided they were going to set free a bunch of prisoners in a federal prison camp that was holding Confederate soldiers. And Indiana wasn't in the war. And these guys didn't think that there should be prisoners from the South held in the conditions they were being held in. So they went to free them, and the feds caught them, and the army said, "We're going to hang you." And Indiana said, "No, no, no, no." And the Supreme Court listened to it, and the Supreme Court said, "You can't have martial law on the land where there's a civilian court, because the civilian court takes jurisdiction and martial law doesn't." And it's obvious that in Indiana that they had no authority, and ex parte Milligan was the Supreme Court's ruling on it. And for years, it's been right there. And nobody else has read it and said, well, hell, let's make a court. So we did. And we just followed the steps all the way down. 21 days and it's done.
So you filed set up your court, the Jural Assembly, a civil court, when you're saying previously there was none because all the existing courts from the existing system basically are operating under Libra Code. Is that right?
That's right.
So your court was the first civil court, and having been established, then you what's the word? You absolved Oregon from military law, from martial law. Yeah.
civilian. When you look up ex parte Milligan on DuckDuckGo and you read all about it, it says civilian court,
Okay.
a non-military, which is different from civil, which is another law form entirely.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Civil court. Yeah.
Yep.
Civilian. Uh-huh.
In fact, when the attorney general, we said to the attorney general, Charlie Ray and I went to Salem and hand delivered the petition for redress of grievance against our governor just at the beginning of the lockdown. And we beat on the door, and a state police sergeant showed up, and we said to him, "Are you a agent of the governor?" He said, "Yes, I am." And we served him, and he accepted service. And that paper got to the governor, which is well done. Thank you. Sergeant Vander something or other, but he knew his job and he did it. So we provided the initial petition for redress, which gives you your initial, or gave us, you can go 100 ways, which gave us our initial claim against these people, persons. They change from people to persons as soon as they're elected.
Okay.
And I lost my train of thought, Charlie. Which way was I going?
Well, we went to Salem, yeah. We went to Salem and we issued our claims.
Okay.
That was the first round.
Yeah. So you're saying as soon as they're elected, they go from people to persons.
Yes.
Ron, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, they become
Here's something.
fictions.
Go ahead.
I just say, yeah, they become corporate fictions at that point. They go off the land and onto the ship.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. And they do. Here's something we just found out, and I thought this was just amazing. When we try to take the money away from these people because they can't hold office, so you got to stop them from being paid. And it turns out that all elected people that become elected persons from the county level on, and it could even be cities, but I know from the county level on through all the states, it goes like this. And I got this from the taking paper on 1000 Southwest 3rd, the Marco Hatfield Federal Building. The city of Portland is a subdivision of the county of Multnomah, is a subdivision of the state of Oregon, is a subdivision of the United States. And that's filed into the federal record in Portland when they took the land for the Marco Hatfield building. That's their records admitting that they're a corporate entity from Portland all the way through to the United States. And they're claiming color of law, not law. You got to take it away from them. Every state's got to do it. Nobody else can do it for you.
So
That was another notice that we did, or claim, which was the VA. When you went to the VA, you could address that one too, Ron.
You talking to veterans?
Yeah. When we claimed, when we put in a claim against the VA.
Yeah, we did, for everybody. I was the point guy on that one. I went to the VA in August of 2020, and they told me to wear a mask, and I said no, and that eventually degenerated to the point where I was in the executive offices of the VA in Portland, and 5 cops arrest me, handcuff me, put a mask on me, and march me to a cell, write me 3 tickets, and then expel me from the building. And they don't have the authority to do any of that. So we took that from the lieutenant that was in charge of the arrest, through the director of the hospital, through the director of the region, through the director, all the way to the Surgeon General of the United States. And they're all culpable. And they all acquiesce to it. And they just don't get to do that. And that's already a presentment is ready for that one. We just don't have the manpower to make another case, to have another trial. It's
we need to fix that.
Just too much.
Yeah. We need to fix that, and quick. We need manpower in every county in the land. And that's what we're trying to do with NATF, National Action Task Force, is to muster the defenders of freedom together so that we can have an impact on our local areas, because that's where the fight is. It's not in Washington, D.C. The fight is in your local area. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, divided we lose. And that's the problem, is that, we all need to pull together. There is no faction among the people. We need to be the people united so that we can actually accomplish the goal. And the goal is common. We all have the same goal. Set us free from your corruption.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make the distinction, Ron, your point earlier. You said that the state entities are all subdivisions of the United States. And for the benefit of our new listeners who may not be familiar, the United States is a corporate entity which has nothing to do with the United States of America. Two different entities altogether. It's all subterfuge and word games and deception and lack of informed consent that they've sucked you into their corporate rules. So a small but not so minor distinction. Okay.
I would say that one of the driving forces that's in their favor is to use fear. There are many levels of fear that people have imposed on them. One is, fear of compliance, fear of acting up or speaking out, fear of what the result may be if they do act up or speak out, because they've seen evidence of violations of rights and freedom. And then just fear of being vocal. Now, with the masks, it's even worse. It's such a symbolic example of cover your mouth, don't speak out, comply, or else.
Yeah.
So fear is the driving force, and we all must overcome our fear, because there's nothing to fear if we know who we are.
And that's an excellent point. If we know who we are as sons and daughters of our Creator, then with that faith, we have nothing to fear. There's no room in your heart for fear if you have strong faith.
Right.
And that's the difference. And it was said, if it was said once, it's been said 1,000,000 times, that there is no more dangerous of a man or a woman who is not afraid to die for their cause. And with faith, that's all that. When you die, it's graduation day. It's a thing to celebrate. Okay.
Moving on.
What a glorious day that will be when you die, when I die. I'm looking forward to that, So what have we to fear? And, it's been said so many times, you're going to die on your feet or live on your knees, that type of thing. But anyway, we hope it doesn't come to that. But the point is, people have to get rid of that fear and control it and know who they are. When you know who you are, that you are the source of authority, then, no one's going to talk you down. Sure, you might end up in handcuffs. I was speaking at a conference one time, and I said, most people are controlled by fear. They're afraid of going to jail. And you said, you know what fear is? It's having fear of the unknown. You know, what you don't know about, you fear the most. And if you fear going to jail, it's because you've never been to jail. So I said, the first thing you need to do to get rid of your fear of going to jail, I said, when you get home, everybody needs to find a way to spend some time in jail. And once you go through that experience, it's not so bad, you know. I says, hey, you know, you get free bologna sandwiches and yellow Jello. What more could you ask for?
Well, I have a friend, a very dear friend, who, out of her fear, has been in her apartment, never left a day of it since the first COVID restriction in March of 2020.
Oh boy.
And she says if she goes out, she has fear, but so long as she stays in her house, her apartment, she doesn't have fear. Well, if that isn't the epitome of fear, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, I would have fear of isolation.
Yeah.
You know, being in your own cell, house
Yes.
arrest for such a period of time. That has severe psychological effects.
Yeah, that's jail.
Yeah,
Solitary confinement.
yeah. Wow. Okay, well. Well, I think we've kind of made the point, and what I'd like to do is another session at another time when we can drill down and guide people on what they need to know or have in terms of educational materials and so forth to get their own jural assemblies going. Can we do
May
that?
I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That it would be really good and basic for people to understand the jurisdictions.
Right.
I think that's key, because once we understand that there's a people's jurisdiction and there's admiralty or commercial law jurisdiction, and they're two separate worlds, I think it would be really important to be able to address that, because it's pretty basic. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's really basic. In fact, I've just addressed that in one of the recent videos I did. So
Okay.
we'll emphasize
Okay.
that for sure. Good point. Yeah. Again, oh, all laws apply to everybody. Well, not if you're not in that jurisdiction. So anyway, well, Ron and Charlie, thank you so much for your time and sharing this with all of us. It's been very enlightening and encouraging, and we're gonna take this and leverage it to get this out so that we've got jural assemblies popping up all over the place. Okay, so I'll be in touch with you, and we'll arrange another session if you can kind of organize your thoughts and your notes on what people need to know about to get one going in their own area. Then we'll pick up on that the next time we meet. Okay.
Please do. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark, for this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you.